Constitution. Of our current 27 amendments, 26 of them, 26, have been ratified by state legislatures. There is only one amendment in the entire Constitution that has been ratified by state conventions, and which amendment is that, class? It is the sorry state of college students today. Why, when I was an undergraduate, we knew our constitutional law, at least as it regards liquor. Which amendment was ratified by state conventions? The 26th Amendment lowered the voting age to 18, you recall. Which constitutional amendment was ratified by convention? It was the 21st Amendment to the Constitution. And what did the 21st Amendment to the Constitution do? It repealed the 18th Amendment, which, as you recall, established prohibition. Well, the 21st Amendment repealed the 18th Amendment, thus repealing prohibition. As it turns out, prohibition wasn't working very well. Alcohol had been declared unconstitutional, but so many people wanted their hooch. And we had all of the speakeasies around the country and organized crime selling the hooch. And in case you don't know, as we get closer and closer to St. Patrick's Day, Haggerty is an Irish name. And in the original Gaelic, my name means the unjust one. Think of that as I grade your exams. And I always think it's, not only did my ancestors do something to deserve being called the unjust, but once they were called that, it was like, hey, yeah, that looked good on the family stationery. Yeah, let's keep that, the unjust. And I remember my dad telling me stories of my Irish uncles making whiskey in the bar during Prohibition. Because you weren't going to keep an Irish Haggerty away from his whiskey, regardless of whether it was legal or not. I bet they made some kick-ass stuff too. Anyway, they were afraid that if you were to send this to the state legislatures, that you'd have enough state legislatures, especially in the South, controlled by conservative religious interests, that there's no way they would get 3/4 of them to go along. But we believe that people still want their hooch, even in these states. So if we allow people to vote for delegates to conventions, we'll ratify this 21st Amendment, and son of a gun, it worked. So, a two-stage process. Still not a very easy thing to accomplish. Through various ways of proposing and ratifying amendments to the document. Well, Article 6 of the Constitution. Article 6 of the Constitution is a little bit different in terms of what it is. To me, Article 6 of the Constitution is like the Constitution's basement. But if it makes more sense to you to think of it as the Constitution's attic, go ahead. Wherever your mom, wherever your family stores the old crap that they no longer use. Yeah, this is where you store that old easy chair. Yeah, that doesn't really fit in with the new furniture that you got last year. This is where you store that ugly-ass lamp that Aunt Edna got you for Christmas last December. The only time you pull it out of storage is when Aunt Edna pulls them to the driveway. Oh, kids, there's Aunt Edna, get that ugly-ass lamp out of the... Oh, we just love this thing. It's on all the time. Thank you, Edna, for your lamp. We'd re-gift this, but you'd notice it don't. Well, anyway, this is where you find a lot of provisions in the Constitution, that don't really fit together logically. Well, you may recall earlier we talked about Charles Beard and his radical interpretation of the Constitution. This is where you find that provision that says that all prior debt to the United States would still be valid under the new Constitution. Remember, he said, aha, I can prove it's an elitist document. Here you have these rich people guaranteeing that they're going to get their Revolutionary War bonds paid back. Well, perhaps. Another provision of Article 6 forbids the use of a religious test. It forbids the use of a religious test, quote, as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Well, the reason this was put into the Constitution was it was quite common in countries at the time to require that a person had to have a particular belief, that they had to belong to a particular church in order to do certain things. For example, why in Britain, up into about the mid-1800s, if you were Catholic, unless you belonged to the Church of England, if you were Catholic, you did not have the right to vote, you did not have the right to hold office. That's for members of the Church of England. And in other parts of Europe, my goodness, in the Prussian states, if you were Jewish, for example, you couldn't enter into certain professions. You couldn't be a doctor or a lawyer. No such religious standards. No such religious restrictions across the United States. The founders are here as a qualification to any office or public trust. Now, not to denigrate the importance of that principle, but as we'll see, perhaps the most important provision of Article 6, and one that's grown in importance over the years, is that Article 6 also is the location of the Supremacy Clause. Article 6 also is the locus of the Supremacy Clause, which for now we'll say, we'll talk about it in greater detail later. For now we'll say basically means that when the national government is acting in its proper scope, that when the national government is acting in its proper sphere, that national laws and actions supersede, that national laws and actions take precedence over those of state and local governments. Well, and so there you have it, the skeleton of this beast, the skeleton of this creature called the Constitution of the United States. But let's go beyond the skeleton to look at something even more interesting. Let's examine the muscles on this anatomy. Let's look at the mechanisms. Let's look at the features that grant power to the government. And this is especially important when talking about our national government, because our national government is a government of delegated powers. In other words, every law, every action, every policy of the national government must derive from, it must come from some grant of power based in the Constitution. Well, and so the first power derived from the Constitution, we can refer to as the enumerated powers. We can refer to as the enumerated powers. You'll also see them referred to as the specific powers. You'll also see them referred to as the delegated powers. In some sources, you'll even see them referred to as the express powers. Whatever you call them, it's the same thing. This consists of a list of the specific powers, a list of the specifically listed powers granted to the national government, a list of the specific powers granted to the national government in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. And please note that for whatever reason, I think just to confuse people, that while articles of the Constitution are written in sections, they are written in sections. While articles of the Constitution are written, it's spring break in my mind too. While articles of the Constitution are written in Roman numerals, the sections are written in Hindu Arabic numerals. And so here you find a list of the powers given to the national government. Read through Article 1, Section 8, for example, and it says that the national government has the power to borrow money. Oh, it's overdone money. We're racking up $1.6 trillion in debt every year for a total national debt now of some $16 trillion. But that is an enumerated power of the national government. Here it says that the national government has the power to establish a system of post offices and post roads. That the national government has the power to regulate commerce. not only the power to regulate commerce with other nations, but the power to regulate commerce between the states. That the national government has the power to raise armies. The national government has the power to raise and to support a navy. The national government has an entire list of these functions.